Hi, and welcome to another episode of Red Talks. I'm Nathan Pierce, your host, and we'll have another guest joining in a moment. I'll let him introduce himself as soon as he gets online. In the background, you will notice Bella. She's appeared in a few other episodes. That's our head of social media strategy. Okay, we've got a few viewers on, so let's just start with what is this whole SuperNetOps thing? It's a new persona that you're going to hear more and more of. I'm just going to jump over here and share a couple of diagrams for a moment that better explain. Here we go. It all started with this. Why are we doing anything differently? Well, Elon Musk said it best when he said you really can't have people in the production line itself. Otherwise, you'll automatically drop to people speed. Whoops, I'm double autoing here. There we go. If you have any questions, by the way, the live chat on the right-hand side, please, by all means, just post a question straight in there. Okay, so Elon Musk made this statement, which I thought was pretty cool. It resonated a lot with me, that's for sure. And let's look a little further into that and what drove this. So I'm going to jump to the next diagram here. The automotive industry, I think, is a great example of what changed and why we needed this new SuperNetOps persona. So on the far left here, we've got, old school Corvette. They could only make as many as people could scale. It was very manually oriented. It took a long time. There was a lot of effort to go in. It was very hands-on. Then in the middle, the Corvette factory, that evolved considerably, and they've got robotics going on in there now. However, the robotics are there to support people. It's still human oriented. It still runs only as fast as people can run. And then on the far right-hand side, we've got the Tesla factory. And the robots aren't there to support people. In fact, it's the opposite. People are there to support the robots. So their limitation is actually physics. It's around the efficiency of the robot. And keep this in mind as we go through kind of what evolved and what changed here, because this is the same evolution that's going on with the way that we deploy applications and services. So we had very manual process, and now it's all about automation and orchestration and just managing that system. So to look at that in a slightly different way, let's go on to the next diagram. I mean, on the left-hand side here, we've got the old way that things were done. It was very project-oriented. You'd get assigned a project. You're responsible for your parts of the deliverable of that project. And for network operations, that was very much about creating network segments, VLANs, firewall rules, all those kind of things. And then when a project finished, you went to the next project, and it was very serial. So, and all it took was a small issue in one project, say project 2, someone didn't quite do the step they were meant to do correctly. Well, that would actually push out project 3 and 4. Well, it looks like we have our guest arriving as well. Hitesh Patel is coming online by the looks of it. So with this project-oriented methodology, we could only scale as high as people working serially on each individual project, whereas now what DevOps has created with all the automation, and you'll see CI/CD, we talk about that a lot, continuous integration and continuous deployment. So it's no longer about managing and working on each individual project. It's actually about managing a system upon which projects are delivered. And that's a real key element to this. Going back to our previous diagram, so we have the difference between the left side and the right side. On the left side, we can only scale as individual cars. Think of that as like the IT projects being deployed. Whereas on the right side, what we've got is a system. So people are managing the robotics, and the robotics are doing, the system itself is doing the delivery of the cars. Well, that's the evolution that's happened in the way that applications are being deployed. And this evolution has happened at an extremely fast rate. The amount of development and effort going in to creating systems thinking. Hey, Hitesh, is that you online there?
Yeah, that's me. Hello.
How you doing, Hitesh? Great that you could join us. So Hitesh and I we independently we're trying to solve this problem, and then we started attending meetings, and we were both in the meetings and using the same terminology. So we teamed up and created the SuperNetOps that we're going to explain to you today, the drive behind it, the real push within F5 networks of why we're going down this path. Is that fair, Hitesh?
That is fair.
Actually, I'll let you introduce yourself. I mean, I'm on here every week, so I'm Nathan from F5's Office of the CTO, and Hitesh Patel, you are?
Yeah, hi. So I am a global solution architect with F5, obviously, and I focus on our cloud automation and DevOps kind of technologies and integrations and enablement. So I have a peer that actually lives in Paris, and jointly we kind of tackle this problem and how to actually bring NetOps actors and people within within companies and within customers to a more DevOps and agile world, and how not only can we do that with our F5 products, but also how do we enable that culture change within our customers, but more broadly within just non-customers too at this point, right? We're talking about this stuff to people that aren't traditionally F5 customers, but we're doing this as a kind of thing of paying back to the community and saying, we've got to evolve the skill set, and F5 is going to help us do that. And through the SuperNetOps program, hopefully we can get there.
Well said, sir. Well said. So we were just quickly going through some of these diagrams of just trying to explain what this evolution was that's driven us to start thinking differently. What is it we're reacting to and responding to that's going on in the industry? So I was just explaining the jump between kind of project-oriented work that happens serially versus systems thinking. So very much like the Tesla factory, you maintain the system and not the individual projects. Now, if you're freed up from project-oriented work, you obviously can scale infinitely better, because all you focus on is continuous improvement of how that system runs. So this is how we got to the idea of, okay, we need to make some changes in how we operate. So this diagram, for example, I mean, in NetOps, we're typically trained and have been operating very much mouse keyboard oriented. I mean, a lot of it's on CLIs. Some products have GUIs, so hence the mouse part of it. And then, to be more efficient, some people have started scripting. Some people even use templates where they just do a find and replace for an individual config to roll out an app, and that's great, copy paste that in. But then at the other end of the scale, what's driving the change in this DevOps world is very different. This is like, things like Node.js, like runtimes and tool chains of tools working together to deliver an end result, and declarative interfaces, and even some of the terminology that's never been exposed to people back here in the NetOps world. So hence I've got this kind of little diagram, the arrow in the middle. It's a very long way from NetOps to DevOps. So what we started working on, Hitesh and I, again, we're coming at it from totally different angles, but realized we had the same goal in mind, and started working together on bridging this gap. So this enablement of doing the same functions we did in NetOps, but instead of doing it with the mouse and the keyboard, on the CLI or in the GUI, actually working out how to serve those services programmatically to DevOps toolchains, to developer toolchains, to continuous integration and continuous delivery systems. Now, the only way to do that is to do that programmatically. Is that a fair statement, Hitesh?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the thing that we hear quite a bit when we say that is this "you're automating me out of a job" kind of fear, which is a fair fear. It's something that we've seen quite a bit. It's something that, frankly, our own engineers at F5 have been a little bit afraid of. And what I like to say is, well, automation and programmability doesn't actually eliminate any jobs if it's done correctly. And as we go through the program, as we maybe go further into the call today, we'll talk through that. But really, the goal is to say let's leverage people in a more productive way, rather than having people driving a process. Let's give them the tools to create automated processes. So we use the common analogy here of a button, or an easy button. And there, if you break that button down, there's the button pusher, the button assembler, and the button creator. And we want to, right now, NetOps, for better or for worse, is a button pusher, right? And what we want to do is make NetOps through the program a button assembler. And right now, F5 is the button creator. We're creating the components for that button. And Super-NetOps people are going to be assembling those components into something that someone else can push. That's really the goal. And then as we go through this, the hope is that, you know, that some portion of these Super-NetOps educated people are actually going to become button creators themselves through community efforts, through GitHub, through a lot of the tool chain that we're publishing is open source. We want to actually enable that and say, hey, you can be a creator in this yourself. And leverage these tools to actually automate your environment and bring value to, you know, the place where you work. That's really the goal of it.
Well said, Hitesh. So instead of just talking about it, there's actually a whole. But what we've got our first question actually up on there. I'm gonna try and keep up with the questions in real time. So I'm gonna jump in and interrupt you every now and then, Hitesh, if we get a question from the audience. In fact, it's actually our good mate Mark Wall from WWT. I know those guys are real big on this automation and helping customers make that path. So when we talk about skills gap, how do you see like NetOps for Life engineers getting ramped up on all these components and skills?
Yeah, so you want me to answer, or at least try to?
I like that term is used, NetOps for Life. I don't know if you've seen it as well. But
so it's interesting, Mark, and it's a great question, right? So we'll go into history a little bit here of where the program and where the enablement pieces. And when I say enablement, that's a number of things that we're doing. The recorded, you know, videos that you can watch. It's lab guides that you can go through. It's lab environments that you can consume. The problem that we actually started with was not a customer problem. This was actually a very F5 problem in that myself as a technical leader at F5, you know, my role is to make sure that we're teaching our engineers, the people that are interfacing with our customers, the right things to do. Since Nathan's got his camera on, I guess I'll turn mine on. There we go. So we wanted to teach our own people, you know, how to have a relevant conversation with customers. There's a number of things that our platform was capable of, but we were finding what I call the last mile was a problem, right? We had technology, but we didn't have the skill set in people to get that technology to the right hands. And so this actually started out as a training program for F5 systems engineers.
I'm showing the result here. You can see in the other screen where we brought that online. We'll refer back to that in a moment. But yeah, give us the background on how we got to this public kind of self-service.
Yeah, so the goal was, right, that our system engineers are what you call NetOps for lifers. In fact, I am probably that person. I started in the app dev world and then moved into networks. So that's a little bit different. So that was the actual thing we're trying to solve when we started this. And what we realized was that through some iteration and through a process that we put in place that was really following a DevOps methodology, that this didn't just apply to our own internal people, that this was really useful for our customers. So we actually took that training, which was the basis for a lot of what you see, along with what Nathan was working on in parallel, and started making that more customer focused. So we are very confident that we've got the right balance, not because we're trying to guess at it, because we had to fix an internal skills gap ourselves. And so I think what we really want to do is say, take someone that has a NetOps skill set and maybe some F5 domain specific knowledge and do everything we need to do to ramp them up into that. And that's really what the perspective that we've created. The videos, the training, the labs, and everything else is not assuming that anybody knows any of these new concepts that we're talking about, really going back and teaching those core concepts and then building up that knowledge with practical examples. So we've got a lot of that. Nathan, if you want
So I just want to throw a comment out about Hitesh publicly here first before we go to that. So I learned something great from Hitesh actually, which was that when you create content, don't just start straight out with the technical side. Hitesh actually did a really good job of first explaining, okay, what is a really good interface to work with? So for example, explaining the difference between a declarative interface and an imperative interface. So Hitesh, in the training course that he developed, which started out as an internal training course, he went into the detail of like, well, you could make these 76 REST API calls, or actually you could be really helpful to the consumer of this service and give them one declarative interface where they make a single call that does the same workload. So he went into great detail of explaining those differences. And I felt that was a really important bit before getting to the tools, explaining the driver behind the tools and what's going on.
Yeah, and that really, so just a little bit there, right? You mentioned declarative and things like that. A lot of that's been informed. Like I said, I started out, and I still am a developer. I shouldn't say that I started out and stopped that. I've always been developing. It's just that my career took a more parallel path down the network route. So the key thing for me was bringing those concepts from the software world, things like revision control as source of truth, which is something that may not make sense now, but that's a teaser to go take the training, right? So you can learn those things. So I won't tell all the answers right now. We've explained a lot of that in the videos of how to bring software concepts into the NetOps world and how to use those tools that are very mature, that are very well tested. We use Git, which is a source control management tool, quite a bit in our examples, and a lot of people will say, well, why are you using Git? Nobody knows what that is. And I'm like, actually, the thing is that a lot of people know what that is. It's just not the people that we talk to every day. The Linux kernel is developed with Git. Massive sites like GitHub are using Git as the backend. So we're trying to use these tools that are very common in the software world, but putting a new spin on them and bringing the infrastructure as code components to that story. And to that end, right, a couple of weeks ago, myself and Tom McGonigal, I think he's on manning the chat window, we're actually at GitHub Universe, right? We went to GitHub Universe to specifically as a sponsor to say, we know that these tools work and we should be using them and interfacing and integrating with our peers and our colleagues on the application and the security side to actually bring this automation to the masses, because it will deliver better results for everybody. And that's a key part of it, right? But doing that means that we have to teach these concepts and skills, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. And by the way, the examples we use are F5 specific, but these concepts are industry-wide concepts. They're not specific to F5. So we're trying to kind of make sure that we're in line with the industry trends and what we're seeing in the market as the common patterns that people are following, not trying to invent our own thing, but fall into the patterns where it makes sense. And then sometimes we're inventing new things, which is fine too. But if there's an existing pattern and we know it works and it's got a good user base, then we're happy to use that and interface with it and train that way.
Yeah, and this isn't just something we're talking about at conferences. So I'm sharing right now, if you go to f5.com/SuperNetOps, this is where a lot of the training it's been improved upon over the last couple of years, really. I mean, it started out just for internal training, and then obviously we took it public and people really liked it. In fact, we were running F5 user groups on this same course we used internally, and they were filling up. I was amazed. I mean, I ran one out of London, and I just offered the course twice a day for a couple of days, and we ended up filling all 5 days of the week. So the course ran, I think, 8, maybe 9 times over that week. I was amazed at how big a demand there was for people to make this evolutionary step from the CLI to working out how they can fit in with this new driving force within their own organizations, not even trying to skill up to find a new job like elsewhere. They were getting a lot of pressure from their own leadership to start thinking differently and to start delivering services programmatically. So this f5.com/SuperNetOps is where the course is ended now, and Hitesh is the main driving force behind this. I think the little work I contributed to this course is probably barely recognizable by now.
That's not fair.
Tell us, what is it that's made it online so far?
So right now, what you're looking at right now has Class 1, Module 1, and we launched this at our Agility customer event a couple months ago. It was in August. And what we wanted to do was actually launch this as a preview. So at Agility, we actually had customers looking at the messaging, going through this, and actually having focus groups to make sure that the message that we have, the way that we're going about it, was the right way. And so what you're seeing right now is the preview version, and here very shortly in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're actually going to be massively updating this with the changes incorporated from our feedback groups and a number of other things that we've been working on the back end. So one of the cool things about the way that we're doing this is we are using a DevOps methodology to develop this content, the code behind it, the training. Everything actually is hosted on GitHub. All of our training labs are using a programmatic tool chain for delivery to our production sites. So this is a massive change that we've enabled within F5 to actually deliver the content and use the concepts that we talk about in the class, which are continuous delivery and continuous improvement, right? So we are actually taking it outside of the realm of just infrastructure and saying that, you know what, this is a better way for us to interact with our customers and make sure that we're able to rapidly integrate feedback and functionality and really deliver on what customers want and do that in a massively kind of iterative manner. So the update that will happen in about 3 weeks from now, actually it's maybe 2.5 weeks from now, is going to be fairly big. We're going to bring on the full version of what we call Class 1, which is 3 modules, which goes all the way through the concepts to doing base automation, to building declarative interfaces, and then enabling those interfaces for consumers, such as application owners. So Class 1 covers a lot of ground. And then we actually have some content ready for Class 2, which is our integration into DevOps, continuous improvement and continuous delivery pipelines. So again, these are all words that may be foreign to you on the call, and I'm happy to answer if somebody asks a question, but this is also what Class 1 is designed to do, which is teach you these concepts and what these things mean. So the goal is here that, you know, by the November timeframe, we have Class 1 up, and we definitely want everyone possible that can go through that to go through it. And then usually probably about by the end of the year or early January, we'll have the full revision for Class 2 done. So right now Class 2 is published, but we haven't updated it based on some of the feedback that we've gotten. So we're working through Class 1. We're actually going to do a live test with 400 engineers here in 2 weeks, so no pressure, Nathan. We're going to do a live test. We guinea pig everything with our own people, and our own people are our best and most vocal contributors, because they really want to get this right and they're invested in it. So we make use of a lot of people to go through this content, and we're going to do that with Class 1 here in 2 weeks.
I just want to touch on that comment you just made there, though, Hitesh. This is an important part of this cultural change that goes on, is this being okay with failing, but failing fast, iterating, failing forward, and moving on. And what better way to test this than with the audience that already knows us and therefore is not afraid to be very critical of what they do.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Leaps and bounds, we're going to jump forward with these guys. So that's how we test stuff now. I mean, it gets developed. This gets developed on GitHub. Like, it's all out there.
You can check. I think 5 minutes before this call started in the repositories, I was merging a pull request from one of our engineers with grammar fixes. So. We are continuously doing that, and we will continue to do that, because we want to teach that concept, because that's also the way that infrastructure works, right? We can make infrastructure that agile. We can make it not only reliable, stable, and scalable, but we can also make it as agile as software development practices are in these leading kind of bleeding edge places, and we absolutely should. I think that it's something that has to happen, and we want to be there and make sure that everybody knows how to do that.
So I just had another suggestion. So we're building out this self-service part of the site, but prior to it going self-service and going onto f5.com/SuperNetOps, there was a version of the course that you could actually just take yourself. If you had access to the equipment, you could run it. It was, we've been running it instructor-led, but for a lot of people that already have the technology and are able to build their own lab environments, this was also published. And if you go to, in fact, a lot of this documentation is, I'm just going to share this other window quickly. If you look at clouddocs.f5.com, I mean, you can see an immense amount of content, training material. I mean, this is what we use at our agility conferences to train people. In fact, if you look, there we go, Introduction to Automation and Orchestration. It's exactly that is being evolved into the self-service version, which is becoming SuperNetOps hosted on f5.com. But there's an amazing amount of content here. I mean, yeah.
You click into that, click where it says control plane programmability there. The link, the gray link right under Intro to Automation.
Oh, this one.
Yeah, it's not
control plane.
I need to make it so it's more readily apparent. So here is what's published right now. This is there. This will see, you will see a change in this if you look at this in about a week or so. You will see a change to this page, but this is what we've actually already got published, and we have lab blueprints available that you can consume to go through each of these. So if you're wanting to take the training, what I would say is if you give us a week or two, take the new version. It's new and improved, and so do that. But just reach out to your F5 account team, and they can hook you up with a lab environment. The other thing that we're doing is we're going to have a ready-to-consume Amazon AWS CloudFormation template. So you can actually just launch your own lab environment. There are some limitations in that environment with that sort of automation right now, so we're working through those, but we will have that up so you can at least go through some of the course in a self-paced, fully self-consumed manner. Keep in mind, when you launch that, you'll be using either your corporate or personal AWS account, so you will be paying for that out of your pocket. So one of the advantages of contacting your F5 account team is you can use our lab gear and our lab environment, and we'll pay for it.
And that is a lot of what's going on right now. And this thing over the next couple of weeks, Hitesh, it's us providing self-service environments so people don't need to go and acquire a bunch of technology to do this. So we're doing everything we can to make this evolution, this training, kind of getting to the next step as frictionless as possible. So I've got another question actually from the live chat. Security.
Yes.
So security, some people feel that they're probably more resistant to automation than some of the other teams. I'm definitely not saying that that is a blanket statement of all, but there are beliefs of that from NetOps. Yeah, what's your take on that? I'm actually really interested in automating security because I think we can have a lot more impact by doing that. And in fact, we can even get tighter and more improved policies by changing the way that they're created, taking some of those manual steps out and using patterns that are repeatable and reproducible. What's your take on that, Hitesh?
Yeah, so absolutely. So first of all, I think the security folks, let's call it SecOps, and that's a blanket word, but I'll just use it for now. I don't think that there's anything fundamentally different in the challenges that we've had in bringing NetOps to kind of this level than where SecOps is. And I think what you're seeing, in fact, the link that Nathan just showed, Class 3 is a Sec DevOps class, and it is actually talking about how we start bringing these same concepts into the security world. So we're already focusing on that. We've got some updates coming there. We've got some new content that's going to be getting published throughout the first quarter of next year, so probably around January, February. But I strongly believe that the biggest impact that we can have on infrastructure and how to apply security, there you go, you've got it up there, Class 3.
Yeah, so we're already developing down the security path there. There we go, Class 3, Sec DevOps. So deriving security policies out of your automation chains. So yeah, we're definitely already thinking down that path.
Yeah. So my belief is, and I think that one of the things that we're really going to be working on here is that automation is one of the best ways to actually bake in security at the infrastructure level. We have evolved our own products, but the security landscape itself has evolved quite a bit, where you can turn on a very large amount of functionality in a very safe manner. The nice thing about public and private cloud environments, basically any environment where you can spin up instances to do things at will. Of course, there's always an economic component to that. You've got to make sure that you do that in a cost-effective manner. But the fact that we can do that now actually lends itself to giving us the capability, the raw compute power needed to actually do fine-grained security controls on layer 7 traffic, something that F5, by the way, specializes in, right? So what we want to do is bring the same concept, and I believe that the Super-NetOps program itself is, the first parts of it are equally applicable to SecOps people, to the security people in our customers and in the market, because the concepts, again, are the same. One of the base things that we had a very big challenge with at F5, getting everyone to understand, is the need to move policy away from the data plane element. So your policy shouldn't be managed and controlled, and maybe even going as far as derived from something in the data plane, in the data path of the traffic. Because what that does is it makes it so that any outage related to a security improvement is actually a production outage. And that is probably one of the biggest inhibitors of why customers don't use advanced functionality that's available to them. We wake up every month with massive, massive breaches that could have been prevented. And I can't say that any better. There is no reason from a technical standpoint why, I'm not going to name names, but we all know it, and we all watch CNN or Fox News or whatever you watch in the morning, and every month there's another massive breach. And every month I, as a professional in this industry, as a developer, as a NetOps person, also as a security practitioner, look at it and say, why wasn't that stopped? These weren't zero-day things. These weren't like massive secret things. These were usually dumb mistakes that happened, and not because of people, because of dumb process. It's because the people that were there to take care of these things weren't enabled, and they weren't allowed to make the changes that they saw they needed to make. And that is probably the number one thing that needs to be fixed. And I believe that the program that we have and the DevOps methodology that kind of intertwines itself with the SuperNetOps program actually helps us solve that process problem and get us to the point where we can make improvements. So there's a lot of good stuff coming on the security front. We're going to focus on that. I think I'm almost hesitant to say it, but I believe that we've solved our ADC use case for the most part. We're obviously not going to cover every particular thing in the training courses, but we give everyone the tools to kind of go fish, right? And the next big thing that we're looking at is security, and how we bring the same sort of drastic change to the security landscape that we're doing now with ADC and automation.
So Hitesh, we've kind of we're running out of time here now, so we'll need to close out this first in a series of live Q&A sessions. This is me publicly committing Hitesh to doing more of these. There's no better way to ask for something than live.
You're still black. It hasn't turned gray yet, but you're doing a good job of getting it there.
Really great. I gotta get some. So yeah, this was the first in a series of live Q&As. This one being the much higher level. What are we doing around SuperNetOps? What we're doing is we're just bringing as much as we can to the public for free, hosted, self-serve, just education. I mean, that's the first step of enablement, is let's get off the CLI, let's start thinking differently. So definitely take a look at that training. Like Hitesh said, in about 2.5 weeks, there's another update coming. So f5.com/SuperNetOps, bookmark that site. keep checking into there, and we'll keep adding great content to help enable. But what we're going to do with this series is actually moving forward, we're going to look at specific areas. So, you know, we can do an episode just on security automation, and, you know, just how to automate using Ansible, or how to automate using Jenkins. So we're going to use this platform moving forward to do more targeted conversations where we'll take Q&A live while we're explaining, you know, how can you best achieve these things? What are the capabilities? What are the weaknesses? And yeah, hopefully that'll be useful to everyone. That sound fair, Hitesh, now that I've committed you live?
Yeah, sounds good. No pressure again. Yeah, no, we're good. We want to get this out. And again, I see this as bigger. You know, this is obviously sponsored by F5, by the fact that they pay me every month to do this, which is great. But this is bigger, I think, when we look at it from an industry perspective, right? We're really trying to do the right thing and bring relevant training and career-changing material to people. That's really what it's about. And at the end of the day, we're using the F5 platform as a tool to train that, but also getting the concepts out and getting this methodology in place, I think, has the potential to actually to bring innovation to the market, right? This is all about enabling companies to deliver their innovation as fast as possible. And frankly, that helps me because I've got all sorts of little app ideas in my head, but I don't have the time to make it. So I hope someone else makes those for me.
Totally understand. So on that note, we're gonna wrap up. You've been listening to Hitesh Patel, Global Solution Architect for DevOps and Cloud at F5 Networks. Say goodbye, Hitesh.
Bye-bye.
Thought you were actually going to say goodbye, Hitesh. That would have been pretty funny. And I'm Nathan Pierce from F5's Office of the CTO and your host of REDtalks.live. We will provide plenty of notification around our future live Q&A sessions on infrastructure automation and infrastructure as code. So thanks for listening, and we hope to see you again on a future live episode. Thanks, bye.